Okay, so when we talk about MIDI recording and MIDI hardware, what we're really talking about is some kind of MIDI keyboard, right? Now, here's the thing. When we think about MIDI keyboards, we tend to think about things like this, okay? Now, there's a lot going on here. What we have here is a piano like keyboard, okay? So it's got the piano keys that you're familiar with. It also has um, some pads and some dials, okay? These can be mapped to do a whole bunch of different stuff. We'll come back and talk about those later. The keyboard part is what's going to play in notes. Now, what's interesting about this is that most MIDI controllers look like a piano keyboard. And the reason they do is because most people know what a piano keyboard does, right? But other than kind of tradition, there's no real reason that your MIDI device needs to be a piano shaped one. They have MIDI devices for virtually everything if you want. You can find MIDI guitars, you can find MIDI saxophones, MIDI violins, MIDI cellos. So a keyboard is probably the most versatile thing because we can just kind of flop our hands on it and do whatever we want. But if you are skilled with another instrument, you should totally get a MIDI controller that is that instrument, like do what's comfortable. I'll show you a MIDI guitar in a couple videos from now, but back to hardware needs. You need a MIDI controller of some kind if you want to do any kind of MIDI recording and playing. Okay, so this is one. The good thing about these MIDI controllers is that they are made of plastic. They're relatively cheap, like this one is let's see, a Novation Launch Key Mini, and I don't remember exactly, but it's probably about $100 or less. These are not designed to go on tour and be on stage, really. They're kind of cheap plastic things, and they don't need to be anything bigger than that. I showed you earlier the Roland C-board that I have connected to this computer. That's a fancy one. That's like a really fancy one. This is a cheaper one. So don't get anything fancy. If you want a piano-like one, all you really need is some keys, and then you can decide if you want the keys to be full-size piano keys. Do you want them to be weighted keys so they feel like a piano? Most of these are not going to feel like a piano. They're going to feel like pieces of plastic, and that's kind of what they're designed to do. If you want one that feels like a real piano, then you're going to be spending a little bit more. But when you're like programming drums, you don't care if it feels like a real piano or not.